is Lauren Hollows from NOI Education Services, and we are continuing our wonderful interview series. Today, I am lucky enough to have with me Peter Doukas from Denison Toyer. I have been working alongside Peter for many, many years. He's definitely a font of wealth and one of the best people from a legal RTO perspective. As with everything else, we have had AI write Peter's introduction. So let's see how well they get it. In the dynamic landscape of community leadership, Peter Doukas stands as a beacon of dedication and innovation. With a remarkable journey that began as secretary in 2009, he swiftly ascended to the position of chair and made him the youngest ever to lead the Ethics Community Council of New South Wales. Peter's impact on this organisation and others has extended far beyond his tenure as chair, helping him spearhead significant reforms in internal governance in the sector. Beyond this, he is the managing director of the esteemed law firm Denison Toyer, situated in the heart of Sydney's bustling CBD. His legal expertise primarily revolves around commercial administrative estate law and RTOs, where he has excelled since 2006. Peter consistently demonstrates his prowess in corporate governance, providing invaluable counsel to numerous organizations and NGOs on matters of compliance and governance. Please welcome Peter. How did it go?
Close. I don't know about 2006. I'm not that old, but everything else is pretty close.
Nice. There we go. So look, fantastic timing for this, because literally yesterday the new fit and proper person dropped. We've had quite a few major changes across the CRICOS sector, and definitely just a renewed focus on compliance, governance, and the regulator taking a slightly more maybe like aggressive or, just firm approach. So I guess one of the things I'm interested in is just like how you're seeing this kind of turn happening, and what you think it's going to mean for the sector.
Yeah, time will tell. I have concerns. One of the biggest issues about the fit and proper person regime in the past was its use in appeals in the AAT, and its use has actually been overturned. I've had a number of matters where people made honest mistakes in filling out the fit and proper person declaration, or forgot to do something, or got legal advice, didn't declare something that had happened, and it was used against them unnecessarily by the regulator in an appeal. Another matter that went to final hearing which is effectively a charge that has been proven, but no conviction has been recorded. So that person has no criminal record. ASQA used that, or tried to use that, in the case to prove that the person was an unfit person, or not a fit and proper person. It was a legally unsound argument for ASQA to take. We told them, they still ran it, and they lost. And not only did they lose, but there was a finding not only that ASQA's there was a finding not only that the CEO was not unfit, but that he was a fit and proper person, and that ASQA's findings on these kinds of matters could not be taken at face value anymore. So it is it's the fit and proper person regime, as it's been established, is a poison chalice for everyone, because I say it's something that is fit for purpose, but is being misused in the past. Now, that's with the old set of rules. These new ones add some more layers on top.
It's definitely more, there's a lot more in it. And one of the things I found interesting was even little things like previously when it said things like, okay, well, have you ever had an infringement or an infraction? There was a little section there which was like, were they all traffic related, right? You're not going to find anyone that doesn't have traffic. Now that's been removed. So it's kind of unclear. It's like, so do I list now every traffic speeding ticket that I've had? And it even goes out of country. So like, I mean, for me, that would go back to like, speeding tickets I received in Miami and stuff like that. So I think the period is not clear. Like if they had stated for the last 3 years, and only infractions, related to like business or something, but it's quite expansive, like the amount of stuff that they're asking for you.
Exactly. And I believe, and again, I'm on record criticizing this, all this is going to do is build up the market for the straw man, the fall guy as an RTO CEO. It undermines the profession of running an RTO because no one's perfect. And no one wants their whole life story to be declared. And especially when you have a professional RTO CEO, and I've acted for some people that have been caught up in this web, between ASQA's fit and proper person regime and funding bodies, for example, and their own fit and proper person regimes, where effectively you become radioactive the moment you are deemed not fit and proper. All it does is incentivize further RTOs to do the wrong thing. It incentivizes, as I've had in the past. I've made discoveries where I had clients who I don't act for anymore, people that had their old dying parents who were 80 years old in nursing homes as the RTO CEO because that's how they circumvented the regime.
This is obviously what it's designed. I mean, the whole point of this is that this is what they want to get to is trying to stop the same people from going in and running bad RTOs and just using different people to do that. But whether or not this is going to be the effective mechanism for that.
Look, I'm very pessimistic about it. I don't think it will. I don't think it will. All it will do is create a bigger industry of dodgy RTO CEOs. It will further embolden the commercialization of I would say shadow RTO management. Because I agree.
That kind of came up a couple of years ago. They played with that idea of having this kind of a registered fit and proper kind of person that might run multiple RTOs sort of thing.
Well, I'd say what you need to do, and I have been on the record about this, is that you need to have a register of unfit people. Not a register of fit and proper persons. I think you need to have a register of people that are banned. Because that's the real issue. And I've actually asked. I've written to ASQA about this because I've had particularly that kind of middle management, the people that have been involved in audits who've done incredibly dumb things or incredibly in some cases I've seen fraudulent or unethical or certainly non-compliant things. And the poor owners of the RTO have entrusted these people. And yes, the liability sits on the ownership and on the CEO, but people have been entrusted with degrees of RTO management as part of running any big business, and they've been hopeless or horrible or openly undermining the business. And then those people, the moment the place gets shut down or comes under scrutiny, walk away, and then the place is left with the provider is left to pick up the pieces. In Krakos world, that carries criminal penalties. Not so much in vet-only RTOs, but it still does, and that's a problem. And I've asked that where there is unambiguous evidence that a person simply should not be playing in the RTO space, we should have a public register. And conversely, that person should be able, if a person is deemed unfit, to appeal a decision about a fit and proper person decision. So it should be, it's a different approach, I think, that should be taken. I don't believe that ratcheting up what people need to disclose when they're making a fit and proper person declaration is the answer, because it will disincentivize professional RTO management. It will disincentivize individuals from who have the option of, when I say individuals, I mean educators, genuine educators, genuine education managers. They will either leave Australia and work somewhere else, or they'll leave the vet sector and move into other forms of education. The idea that the Vice Chancellor of Sydney Uni can say no to all of these things and still be the Vice Chancellor of Sydney Uni, not to say that there's any criticism of the Vice Chancellor of Sydney Uni or any higher education provider. They can the definition of of fit and proper person in higher ed, for example, is infinitely higher than this. Now, in response, and some of the submissions that I've made have been responded that ASQA's not actually judging what people write. They just want to know.
Yeah,
it's a declaration. It's not
It's not at the moment that you tick one of these boxes, that's it, you're done and dusted. Like, I always say this to people as well, as I'm kind of like, look, let's disclose it. Like, and I mean, my fit and proper person always has like a 2 to 3 page addendum with it, and it's always been accepted. But, you know, I guess it's,
where does it end?
Yeah. And I mean, look, that takes us on to the next point, the new definition of high managerial agent. So I'll just read the new definition. A high managerial agent is an employee or agent who represents your organization in relation to the business of providing courses, which is a huge change. Examples of high managerial agents where ASQA may request completion of a fit and proper person include a consultant or employee with an ongoing role related to regulatory compliance, a consultant or employee who represents your organization at audit, an agent who recruits students on behalf of your organization, people employed by third-party organizations who fulfill any of the above, or people employed by third-party organizations who provide training and or assessment. Now, this is going to potentially mean that, like, you know, if someone's coming into a CRICOS audit and you've got a consultant, you've got, 30 agents, are we, one, as a consultant myself, and I mean, we were talking about this before, you're in the same position. Do now, the moment that we engage in a formal contract with any organization, we're now a HMA on there, which is then going to have this massive like roll-on effect. But then if you apply that to like anyone who does third-party training, all of the schools that you auspice with, anyone who does anyone who's an international agent, like how is that going to play out? Like, I mean, that's a huge administrative burden, not just for RTOs, but for ASQA as well.
It is. And that's the problem, because it's going to appear when there's appeals. It will appear when there's a problem, right? And it will be used when there's a problem. And that's where it all comes undone. So it's not actually a regulatory regime. It is an enforcement tool, different. And that's where, and it's not to say, again, this is not a criticism of ASQA. This is I am concerned because all it will do is embolden the dodgy people and punish the people that try to do the right thing. Because I have, in the past, I've been called to come to clients that have been raided or that have had ASQA appear on the day. And I've had no relationship with that client before that very day. Some of them have become long-term clients and friends. Many consultants are in the same boat where we've been called on a day, ASQA's coming, please come and help me. There's no contractual arrangements that you can enter into. You can't do a fit and proper person declaration in that time. Simultaneously, there are experts in the RTO consulting area who are sanctions experts.
Yeah, Raylene, Alex, there's probably maybe 3 or 4 that are really experts in this area, like maybe 3 or 4. There's not many.
There would be half a dozen in the country maximum of people who are the knowledge base of in terms of the RTO world, and who can actually work in that space, because it's a hard space to work. I mean, it takes a lot. It takes a toll, I think. And often I often get instructed by clients who have got massive problems, who are not under audit, but they've just become aware of a problem. That requires an automatic self-disclosure to ASQA. But other times, it's just you do an internal audit, you do the internal review, you fix it, and then the college moves on. Well, if they engage, if a provider now has a positive obligation to notify ASQA when they engage one of these specialists, who are the only people that can fix it, right? The analogy really is having to tell the world. We found a problem. well, it almost disincentivizes them from doing so, right? It almost disincentivizes them from actually investing, which is the thing that we have to do, right? Investing in long-term compliance. And or to work with a dodgy person who turns around and goes, "Oh, that's okay, we just won't mention it. Like, I just won't say anything." Do you know what I mean? Like, Exactly.
You know, like if someone comes to me and I mean, I will be having conversations with ASQA about this, and if ASQA says yes, everywhere where you've got a contract for an ongoing thing, you're going to have to register, I will go out to all my clients and say, well, this is what we've got to do. If, you know, there will be other people that will turn around and go, oh, it's fine, I'll look the other way.
You dropped out.
Oh, sorry, I did drop out there. That was my fault.
But
Yeah, you're right. It does create those two classes of, you know,
without a doubt.
yeah.
And then the question
for
is,
consultants as well, I mean, that this is actually a scary concept for us to kind of go, am I now going to be a listed HMA with 16 different RTOs? And what does that mean for my reputation that, like, we've all worked really hard to cultivate and protect? What is that going to mean for us moving forward? Do we not?
lawyers?
Do we choose not to? Well, I mean, see, I've got the choice of not working with anyone who's, like, I see as high risk. You don't have that option unless you're going to, like, stop working in this area.
Yeah. Well, what are lawyers meant to do? Because the problem is that I can tell you that I will not be submitting a fit and proper person declaration for my clients because I have other obligations as a lawyer. Law firms have other obligations. So unless my client specifically instructs me, I can't. There are obligations of legal practitioners of
confidentiality being the first one.
Well, yeah. It's more than confidentiality. It's actually more than confidentiality. It's actually client professional privilege, which is an obligation of me as in my profession to not disclose. So it's beyond normal confidentiality. So it's not to say it's not practicable. It's not possible. So if ASQA asks these questions, I don't think they're going to. I think, again, in my conversations with ASQA as late as 2 months ago about this new fit and proper, they said their lawyers are not going to be part of this thing because it wouldn't end well if they made lawyers part of it, because where does it end? I mean, how can the criminal justice system doesn't mandate these things. Why would the vocational regulation system do so?
I mean, there's going to be a lot of consultants and a lot of agents and even a lot of, you know, I guess just people who, as I said, provide third-party training and stuff like that. You know, what do you think is going to be the impact? Like, obviously, we're not providing, and I will provide this to everyone. We're not providing legal advice. This is not legal advice. If you would like legal advice, you can call up and engage Peter and his firm and go through that process. But, like, in general, what are we thinking for people who are out there and they're looking at this and going, okay, well, what do I need to do now? Like, I know personally for me, as I said, I'm going to be going and calling ASQA and getting some written advice from them directly and going, you know, please advise if this is what you want us to do. And then I will follow that advice, you know, however it washes out. But, you know, I
would do the same thing. I would do the same thing. I often do. I am not ashamed that I constantly annoy ASQA with different questions, and I annoy many people inside ASQA with different questions. But it actually is in the interests of my clients to do so, because it's. I mean, I don't do it for no reason. It shows. I mean, during COVID, ASQA came out with this overriding notion of commitment and capability or capacity. Right, and I think that's fantastic. And the idea that all you need, if you can show capability of what of delivering as a registered training organisation in the area that you're operating in, and commitment to that very thing,
education and to students to do the right thing.
That's right. Well, it's all of it though. It's commitment. That also goes to the commitment to the business itself, right? It stems from everything. If you can show those two things, then everything else should be easy. And I say, and I have argued that deep and ongoing conversation with the regulator shows that, if you're asking these questions. So yeah, I think in this, as this new FPP is settling down, I suspect it's going to be changed. I suspect there's going to be things that are not policed, or ASQA will, and they should do a do a memorandum explaining all the way that these different things really, what they really want to see. That's what I'm expecting to do, because lots of providers are going to have these questions. I mean, you have another, and this is occurring a lot in large providers and some institutional providers where you've got a big business that has an RTO, necessarily a big business that is an RTO.
Ford, Telstra, McDonald's.
We saw what happened during 2018 and 19 when they cracked down on lodgement of event miss data, and they were cancelling, they were cancelling big RTOs and
there's like 7 big guys in one day, and everyone was like, "Whoa!"
It was fantastic. But I mean, to their credit, ASQA did. I don't know all the matters that I dealt with in that period. I mean, it was to prove a point, and everyone's now taking the event missed data lodgement seriously, but it was a bit of overkill at the time. Something similar is going to happen here. We don't want to have the same thing going on because we're dealing with people. We're dealing with people and their careers. And surely it is the intention of the regulator to get the most qualified individuals running RTOs.
Yeah.
And owning RTOs, hopefully, but the most qualified individuals running RTOs. I've been in the past, the biggest fight was about the good old Cert 4. I have been in ASQA audits where I had a professor of international education from Oxford, so a PhD from Oxford, who had been employed as a managerial agent, as a managing director and he was completely compliant, and he was across everything, and he was probably, and in his words, the most qualified individual in international education in Australia at the time, be rejected from teaching because he didn't have a Cert 4. Now, today that wouldn't apply because they fixed it. Today that wouldn't happen. So ASQA has this, and so ASQA does get to the right thing. But we've had this position where the standards and the regulator, the interactivity of the regulator and its providers, in the way that they apply the standards and in the way that they apply the regs, is a really important thing. So I'm disappointed about the new FPP because it's not what I wanted. I really wanted I wanted less of a scattergun approach and much more of a focused issue, like a registry or something that was a much more policing issue, where you had people that were unfit who probably would never be able to appeal it, and then you focused on that and then you expanded it, as opposed to this sort of scattergun thing. I think that in implementing this kind of regulation, the auditors that are doing it, or that are actually reviewing this stuff, will be reasonable. I'm expecting, because I have to say, ASQA has in the last year been very, very reasonable.